everyone. Welcome to the B-Side Breakdown. My name is Brett Johnson, and I'm your host. This is episode 12 of a podcast where I talk with other artists, musicians, or songwriters about a piece of music they've written that they can give me permission to play in its entirety on this episode, and then we get to discuss in detail why it's meaningful to them. So today I'm going to be talking with David Jarnstrom. David is a Minneapolis, Minnesota-based drummer who I've known since 1999 or so. He was in a Milwaukee-based band called Edgewise, and I was in a band from Minneapolis called Remover, and we played a show together at Mr. Heavy's in Menominee, Wisconsin, and that's how we met and been friends ever since. Over the past 20 plus years, David has played in a ton of different bands and toured a bunch with, Aladdin and Dead History, who you've both heard on the B-Side Breakdown, as well as obviously Rad Owl, because we're going to be talking about Aladdin's Castle today. But he's also been in bands Gratitude, Attention, BNLX, a band called Pocket Genius. He's played with Justin Pierre of Motion City Soundtrack and John Snodgrass of Drag the River. So I'm just excited to hear from him about the song Aladdin's Castle. He's such a good dude and such a great drummer, and I look forward to you hearing this episode. I hope you really dig it. So let's get into it. Here is Aladdin's Castle by Rad Owl. And that was Aladdin's Castle by Rad Owl. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with David Jarnstrom. Stay with us. All right, and we're back. Thank you so much for sticking around, and let's bring in David. Hey, David, how's it going, man?
Great, man. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk to me about this song. I love I love the song, and I've loved the song ever since I've first heard it because it scratches all the itches of all my favorite punk rock bands when I was a kid, and just the way you guys play it and knowing you guys individually as musicians, it's just so much fun to hear how much fun you're having in it. But again, without me having to gush too hard on it, I would love to hear from you. Why is it specifically you wanted to talk about Aladdin's Castle?
Yeah, well, thank you. And that's, what you just said is exactly why I wanted to talk about it, and why it's special to me. It's sort of it's very much like a comfort food kind of thing for all of us.
Sure.
You know, uh, it's hard to kind of succinctly explain, so I'll try. I'll do my best here, but like
Yeah.
we're sort of, the age we're at. I'm still trying to challenge myself as a musician to try to do new things, and continue to grow and expand. But nostalgia is kind of a very powerful, like tractor beam, I guess, sort of at
Yep.
our age. It feels almost sort of inevitable at our age that you kind of, there's just something special that happens with the music you connect to when you're, you know, 13 to 16 or whatever age, sort of teenage years. And so this song, is sort of ended up being kind of like a homecoming of sorts. And it was sort of unexpected. Didn't really even necessarily know that I wanted it or needed it when it came along, but when it did, it was just so amazing for all of us. And it was really cool to see other people sort of react to it and accept it and enjoy it as well. It was really, really validating, like what you just said. So yeah, it's basically, the four of us, we all grew up in Mankato, Minnesota, which is, 90 minutes south of Minneapolis. And when we were growing up in the early 90s as teenagers, we just luckily had this incredible all ages punk rock, hardcore music scene, where we were able to go, right downtown and see like national touring acts come through, and pay $5 and you can go see like Jawbreaker, Sam I Am, Big Drill Car, all Propagandhi, like all these bands that quite literally, changed my life, changed my whole perception of music. Before that, and was very much raised on MTV and FM radio.
Sure.
And, so that's just sort of at the core of what we all are, and moreover at that time, there were really great local bands as
Oh, yeah.
well from Mankato, Minnesota, town
Oh,
of,
yeah.
at the time, maybe 40,000, and some of them were kids who were still in high school who, were not that much older than me. And so that also really made the light bulb go off in my head as a kid and think, maybe I can do this too, and so among those people were Jeremy Jessen, singer and guitar player for Rad Owl, Jeremy Burgo, bass player for Rad Owl, and Ryan Felgen, who's the original guitar player and sometimes vocalist of Rad Owl. And they were all a little bit older than me, and they were all in these awesome bands, and they were opening for these bands that I mentioned that came through, and just kind of like, I really looked up to them. And that was pretty much the pinnacle of my music dreams at the time, was, to do what they were doing, play an all ages show in Mankato, and, opening for No Effects or whatever, or not even, just even our all local shows were amazing, and I just thought that was it, and so, and I got to do that when I was like 16. The first show I ever played was like a basement show with Jeremy Jessen and Jeremy Burgo and a couple other guys, and we did a Doughboys tribute set opening
Nice.
for this Canadian band called Punch Buggy. And I just turned 16, and that was just like, I was just on cloud nine. I was like, oh my God, playing with these guys who are really great players. They asked me to do this, and that was sort of my into doing the music thing. And, around that time we were all kind of working, it was a tight knit community. So it was easy to make friends. And we were all working at this kind of like local bar and grill as like cooks and dishwashers as teenagers in high school. And so we all became really super tight. Jeremy Jessen, Jeremy Burgo, Ryan Felgen. Then my first original band was me and Jeremy Burgo as the rhythm section. And then he and I have gone on to play in like, half a dozen bands together. And, there's just this massive foundation at that time, growing up in this small town, just making music with buddies, no real ambition beyond that, just doing it for like the love of the pure love of it. Right. And so, I think you and I sort of have a similarity in that, I think we both kind of came up in a similar sort of thing where we have a bit of a split personality with that, whereas, we came up probably in like a punk rock DIY kind of environment. But we also, had greater ambitions, took it a little more seriously than maybe some people, came up in the same kind of a thing, I learned to play music with my friends, and we sort of just wanted to emulate the bands we were into at the time. And we were happy to do that. But, I wanted to do more and get out there and make more ambitious music and try to make a go at it. And like I'm thinking about like, when I was a teenager, like my neighbor's older brother basically introduced me to the first kind of like local punk music I'd ever heard, Libido Boys, which totally blew my mind that a band like that was from my hometown, and then, but the same like week he introduced me to Rush.
Sure.
And I was like, oh my God, and I loved all of it. I was into punk rock and that kind of thing, but I was also into like really ambitious, well-crafted, well-considered kind of music, and wanted to just, kind of do as much as I could. I wanted to travel and I wanted to see the world and get out there. And so, you and I have both had those kind of like opportunities, where, we both ended up getting to play in situations where we got to get out and see the world and kind of do it, I guess, as a, professionally, or at least semi-professionally.
Yep.
And, kind of like quote unquote made it for a while, and which was amazing. And I'm so grateful to have had those opportunities. But, as a, that was sort of like the bulk of my 20s was that sort of arc, and as I was approaching my 30s, it was sort of like diminishing returns in terms of all that stuff. And I noticed I'd sort of like developed, a bit of like a resentment sort of towards music, because I wasn't, it was sort of like diminishing returns. I was on the down slope. I felt like, it seemed like my window was closing to, quote unquote, make it. And, you're getting older and you don't have any money, and just sort of like my relationship to music had sort of soured. I was still playing. I never quit. I was playing all along, but I just didn't, you sort of lose that spark a little bit. So really, this band, sort of came around, it was around 2016 we started jamming, and really, I mean, we've been friends all along, and certainly, Jeremy Jessen and I played together in a line. I ended up joining a line towards the end, late in their run. So that was like 2002, 2003, 2004.
Yep.
So we had played together again. Burgo and I had played together again. And we were playing together again in a band called Pocket Genius at the time and stuff like that. But we really had been threatening to kind of do something for quite a while, and we really wanted it to be like an all Mankato kind of back to the roots, kind of a thing. And we talked about it, and We finally got together, you know, it was around summer 2016, and we would just get together like once a month, and we'd jam covers, and we just, you know, play whatever we wanted to play, just for fun and just to hang out, and no real goals or ambitions or anything like that. And it was just really, really fun, and it was like sort of a revelation in terms of just having fun with music again, and not having it be anything other than that. You know, like if we never did anything other than that, it was super fun. And that sort of sparked, you know, hey, maybe we should write a song. Let's try to write a song, you know. And so the first song we wrote was great, and we recorded it, and that came out. That song's called Lake Monster. But I sort of think of that song as a little bit like we were kind of clearing our throats. Like Jeremy was still in All the Way Rider at the time, Jeremy Jessen. And that song has a little bit of it doesn't really necessarily sound like All the Way Rider, but I felt like it was sort of like vocally, maybe he was kind of clinging on to that thing a little bit still. And like, and so finally getting back to why I picked Aladdin's Castle. So Aladdin's Castle was the first song that we wrote that sort of, that was the second song that we wrote. But that was in my mind, that's the one that kind of like, you know, kicked the door down for us to do this thing, and sort of the light bulb went off, where that was the sound, you know, and that's kind of what we were looking for, and made it was kind of like a skeleton key, you know. It's kind of like, okay, now we can do this, and we can kind of do whatever we want. And from that moment, you know, we wrote it in like a day, you know, and from that moment on, like every time we get together, like every other week or whatever, we would write a song. And just someone would bring a riff in, and we would just write a song around it. And it was everyone chipping in, everyone having ideas, you know, just like in the old days, like really everyone just kind of, equal parts opportunity, everyone, you know, contributing, and just kind of hashing it out in real time, you know, not someone showing up with a band, you know, garage band demo with a drum machine on it. It's like, well, here's how the song goes, you know.
Right.
And so that it just, I don't know, there was a reawakening and just a rediscovering of what made me love playing music in the first place, that came from this song, which was such a gift that I, again, didn't even really know that I wanted or needed at the time, but it just, and I think it affected all of us the same way. And it just kind of snowballed, and, you know, became, a record, and us playing shows, and continuing on to this day, just because we really it just gives us a feeling of, I don't know, it gives you that feeling of like, what, this is why I'm doing it, you know, if that makes sense.
It totally does. And that sentiment and that feeling comes through in the song completely. Dave, thank you so much for giving us all that context about kind of how Rad Owl came together and how you guys know each other. I think I really admire, and frankly am a bit envious that you guys had that connection at such a young age, and all of you have just continued to be prolific musicians. And knew that you wanted to go back and just kind of make this a Mankato thing. Like, I thought that was really, really cool that you did it like that, because where I came from, where I grew up just outside of Minneapolis, it's funny you mentioned Libido Boys earlier, because the first time I saw All was on the All Roy Says tour at 7th Street Entry back in '87 with Libido Boys opening. And that was the first time I saw Libido Boys, and that really dialed me in. I mean, I was 15, you know, not to age myself, but I was 15 at the time, and that dialed me into, there's this Mankato, you know, Mankato farmcore. Like, what's going on with this punk rock scene in Mankato? Like, who are these dudes? Like, what is going on, and how do I not know about this? And that opened up the whole doors to even just the Minneapolis punk rock scene that was happening, with Libido Boys on one side, the hardcore scene on the other side, with bands like, you know, Blind Approach and whatever. But it was like, there's this whole thing happening, like the all-age matinee shows at 7th Street Entry. Like, Libido Boys were a huge proponent of that. I have this flyer. I remember Libido Boys. It was the Libido Boys, The Stench, and Green Day opening for them at 7th Street Entry. I have the flyer still. I remember I couldn't go because I had to go to my grandmother's house or something that weekend. And in hindsight, I'm just like, damn it. But it's so funny for me that that connection is there for me, kind of my roots with the whole DIY punk scene as well, and that style of music. And particularly, with this song, like for me, I could just hear it. It sounds so much like it's all the stuff that I hear of you guys being you, but you guys putting forth your best sort of nods of respect to guys like Bill Stevenson, Stefan Edgerton, Carl Alvarez. Like I can hear
Yeah.
them like so clearly, and to me, it just makes it that much more fun because it resonates for me for that same style of music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And that's like, it's funny. We kind of, as we were going and sort of accruing more and more songs, it was sort of like we would refer to, certain parts of songs as like, okay, here's the Doughboys, here's the double time Doughboys, ending of the song part. Here's the big drill car riff. Here's the,
Sure.
here's the snuff or Guns and Wankers part. Here's the descent. Like we do shorthand. I mean, a lot of times we wouldn't even talk about it, and that's the most beautiful thing about all of this.
Right.
And listening to Aladdin's Castle again, like, and I'm hearing how all the parts kind of interlock. Burgo is really playing against the guitars, and I'm kind of. It all kind of just fit, and we didn't really talk about it. Even it just kind of happened, and that's sort of that was a revelation. That's just like, oh my God, like we've had this like embedded kind of like language that we're able to just kind of communicate without having to like, we never had to like stop and be like, well, maybe you should play eighth notes on this and all, what it's just kind of, that was amazing. But yeah, it's very much like a Mankato. It's very much an homage to all the bands that we basically grew up listening to, and very much Descendants, all Big Drill Car, Sam I Am, Propagandhi, all that stuff, and all the Mankato stuff too. But yeah, very much like we were like, we want this to sound like basically like a greatest hits plate, like Mankato 1993, 94, like this is what Mankato was like, for us at least. And I think we were able to achieve that, and which was just amazing, because there was no guarantee that it was going to turn out the way it did. Again, it's just for the sheer joy of it. The fact that other people responded to it is just a bonus. But we'd probably just be doing it for ourselves, even if no one else did. I mean, we basically like did this. We didn't tell anyone about it. We were doing it for about a year. We weren't even like really telling anyone about it. Sort of in this age of oversharing with social media, and every time you start a new band, it's like, we got a band, and this is our first practice, and this is our, this is what we're doing. And we even have like kind of like a mock song about that on our record. That Bleeding Cowboy song, sure. Ryan Felgen, he's just a genius. That's the one song Ryan sings. Just about that whole like getting the cart in front of the horse kind of a thing with where we're at these days with social media and bands and stuff like that. And we're just like, hey, what if we just came out of nowhere with a record, before we even play a show, and just really, sort of harken back to the days when you used to have to kind of like, it just wasn't this oversharing kind of thing that we're all inundated with now, and so the whole thing was just a very kind of like preordained, kind of like a nostalgia trip, even the band name,
of course. Yeah.
It was, we had this like text thread going where we just, just goofing off and telling jokes and we took this thing seriously, but we also poke fun at it and all that, just sure. Sort of like this irreverent kind of approach. And so we were coming up, we just talked about a lot of things that we were nostalgic about from growing up in Mankato in the 80s, 90s, Aladdin's Castle, the song Aladdin's Castle, that was an arcade in the downtown Mankato Mall, right next to the movie theater and the record shop, and the best time you could have in the late 80s as a kid was getting, dropped off by your parents and, you know, going to see like a movie and playing some video games at Aladdin's castle. You know, you get 5 tokens for $1. That was the big differentiator there.
Sure.
Instead of, you know, 4 quarters for $1, which is awesome. And then you go to the record store next door and you'd maybe buy like a Guns N' Roses like pin for your jean jacket, you know, button or whatever. And like,
yep.
And that was like the most bitchin' Friday night you could ever have, you know? And like, you know, so, and then the band Rad Owl, you know, there was this grocery store chain in Minnesota, in the upper Midwest called Red Owl. And we were just talking about like some of our earliest memories as kids. And one of my earliest memories was sitting in the back of my car, my mom driving to the grocery store, and in our Chevy Impala or whatever it was, and like looking up at this Red Owl sign as a kid, and being in the grocery cart, and sort of like seeing this red owl head everywhere. And I always thought that was such a cool brand, you know. And I always thought it was like lame. You think about grocery stores now, they're all so lame. There's no like cool grocery store brands, you know, but that was a cool brand. And I was always like, man, you know, and then I think it was Felgen had the idea. He's like, what if we changed it to Rad instead of Red? And, you know, and then Burgo was like, yeah, what if we inverted the colors of the owl? And it's sort of like this bizarro evil owl, you know, and it all just kind of came together.
Sure.
Just, you know, really like, not taking it too seriously, just kind of fun. Like, hey, we have built-in branding now. And, you know, just, it all kind of worked. It wasn't fraught over. None of this stuff was really fraught over. All the songs, all the ideas just kind of flowed, and it was all in the name of good-natured fun, you know. Like, we weren't trying to take over the world or anything like that, you know. It just, again, all brought it back to like, hey, we're kids in the neighborhood again, just trying to have a good time and entertain ourselves first and foremost.
Yep.
And, you know, and if anyone else digs it, then that's cool. But so, yeah, really glad that you picked up on it. And yeah, when you saw us in Atlanta, we had Greg Hoffman playing guitar, who lives in Boston, Massachusetts.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he played drums in a band called Doc Hopper that used to play in Mankato all the time in the 90s, that we absolutely loved as kids. He's like an honorary Mankato guy. He knows what it's all about. And so we kind of, along the way, Ryan Felgen, he's a little more of a hermit than the Jeremys and myself.
Sure, the Jeremys.
And yeah, and it sort of became evident that he, you know, when we started getting a little bit more ambitious, like we booked a tour with Doc Hopper out to Colorado and back, like nine days. And, you know, we could kind of get the sense that he was, he didn't really want to do it. It's not really his bag. You know,
Sure.
He's a tremendously creative, awesome person, just amazingly funny, super important to how this band came about. And we miss him dearly. I mean, he's just such an awesome person. But he eventually bowed out, and we were sort of a little bit in a lurch, and Greg offered to, you know, a fill in on guitar for that tour, so we didn't have to like cancel the tour or do it as a 3-piece or whatever.
Got it.
And so when we went down to the Southeast to play the fest, in 2021, he came along as well for that, which was awesome. And now we have a new Ryan in the band, Ryan Tate, who is a total shredder, not from Mankato, but kind of comes from a similar background. He grew up in Fergus Falls,
sure,
Minnesota. He's a little bit younger, but kind of came from the same background where he played in a band with childhood friends all his life called Class of '86, and they're awesome. Not really active anymore, but very much kind of in the Propaganda mold. So he's very familiar with a good deal of what we do. He's not quite on the same level of Descendants and Big Drill Car and you know, Doughboys freak as we all are, but
sure,
you know, really shreddy stuff. He's slid right in and been an awesome addition there. So,
Well, that's
yeah.
awesome, man. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with more with David Jarnstrom from Rad Owl. Stay with us. All right, and we're back. So what are you guys then working on now with New Ryan? Do you got another record coming out? Are you doing anything, any other shows or any runs coming up?
Yeah. So we are hopefully going to start recording either next month or in March. We've, accrued a lot of songs over the last couple of years. A little bit of a different process, with the pandemic hitting. Obviously, we weren't getting together so much. We did write about 6-ish songs with original Ryan Felgen, that we were playing pretty regularly. And then, we sort of had that double whammy of Ryan leaving and then the pandemic hit. And, Jer Jessen, bless him, he just never stops. He's such a creative dynamo and so incessantly dedicated to making music. It's just unbelievably inspiring to me. He was just cranking away at stuff in his basement all through the pandemic. And he would just send us, ideas constantly. And so when it came, time when we were able to kind of get together again, we sort of had this whole pile of riffs and song fragments, and in some cases, pretty completely realized ideas that he had come up with. And so, yeah, we've got a mountain of stuff to record now, and it just kind of took a while to get the new Ryan Tate sort of acclimated and give him the freedom and space to kind of find his place in all of it and find his voice. And we didn't really want to push that. So, yeah, we've been ready to get back at it for a while, but we wanted to kind of wait for the timing to be right. And I think thankfully it's right around the corner. So hopefully we'll have another record either by the end of the year or early next year or something like that. I'm not sure, with vinyl backup stuff,
Sure.
It might take a while, but yeah. So, and then we've been playing shows all along, and we'll continue to do that. And we're all in other bands, so it's always a juggling act. Jer and I, now we're doing a line again. So
right.
So that and that band is recording and playing shows, so that kind of takes up some time. And I have another band called Dead History that does stuff. I think you interviewed John McEwen about one of those songs.
I did, yep.
Which is cool. And Jeremy Burgo's in a band called Two Harbors, which does stuff. And so yeah, there's always kind of roadblocks, but we're getting back to that whole thing. Like, I think as long as we're having fun, we're probably going to keep doing it. And it hasn't really ceased being fun yet at all. It's been such a joy to do it. And so yeah, we'll stick with it, I'm sure.
Awesome, man. No, that's super cool. I'm glad that, and thanks for that. Cause I didn't know that First Ryan had left. One, I didn't know there was a First Ryan, and then realized First Ryan left. Now you got New Ryan, and you got another record potentially coming in March. That's awesome.
Yeah. I just wanted to add that so Jer, I talked to Jer a little bit about it just to kind of confirm, like, we never really talked about this. It's funny. I'm not really like a big lyric guy, like even with like someone who has got kind of a writing background and stuff like that. Like I don't always, even some of my favorite songs, I'm like, I've never like endeavored to really like read the lyric sheet or try to figure out what the song is about. But I kind of always had this like inkling that I thought this song was kind of about what we've been talking about, which is sort of like the band, it's just sort of like a celebration of us doing this again. And I sort of like reached out to Jer before we did this podcast, just to kind of like pick his brain about what the song is about. And he kind of confirmed it. It is sort of like referring to this sort of like rebirth thing, and just sort of the notion of like, rock music, punk rock, it is sort of like a young person's game, I guess. There was kind of this thought of like, at some point we're not going to do this anymore because it'll just be stupid, being in our 40s playing this kind of stuff. And,
Man,
at the time, well, yeah, certainly, we were very inspired by like seeing, Descendants came back with that great record in like 2017, and they were touring all the time and playing at such a high level, and kind of rediscovering like Propaganda collectively at that time, and just seeing how far they had progressed, and like they were just taking it to just these insane levels of like speed and precision and power and all this stuff. And you're like, man, you can kind of age into this thing. And there's really there's no time limit on this. And so, and that's kind of like Jer did kind of, kind of reveal that the lyric kind of does allude to that, that notion of like, hey, we can keep doing this, and we can, we can do it gracefully and well, and it can kind of make us stronger and make us age, the way we want to age, and you don't got to just hang it up. And, there's a lyric at the end where he just, sort of the refrain at the very end where the progression kind of changes to this climbing, kind of triumphant kind of, progression that just, and he says, needed you to know it's never over. And, every time we play that, like it never ceases to not give me kind of like goosebumps, because it just kind of it's just one of those like life affirming things where I'm like, yeah, it's never over. We're just gonna, I guess we're just gonna do this like forever. As long as you're here and I'm here, and we'll just keep doing it, and it'll be great. And that's really what that's at the core of what this is all about, and sure. So that's why this song, even though I'm just the drummer, I didn't write the riff, I didn't write the lyrics. That's why this is particularly meaningful to me.
No, that's awesome, man. I appreciate you sharing that. For whatever reason, and transparently, I may edit this out, but I just love the reminder. There was an old movie filmed in Minneapolis a while back called That Was Then, This Is Now. It was an S.E. Hinton novel turned movie with Emilio Estevez and others. And Morgan Freeman was in it. And there's this awesome scene where they're in Morgan's bar, and Craig Sheffer's drinking a beer, or he offers him a beer, and he's like, what about the rules? And Morgan Freeman's like, there ain't no fucking rules. And that was like one of my favorite lines, because that totally resonates with what you're talking about. I totally understand that. I mean, same thing for me, man. It's like I'm doing the music that I do because I still love to play and I still love to write and still want to keep doing it. And as long as that love and fun is still there, there is no age limit to any of this. And there's no reason we have to stop just because, oh no, you're not marketable because you're not 23 anymore. It's like, I don't care. Right. It doesn't matter. Then the people who want to listen to 23-year-olds versions doing this probably wouldn't dig it anyway, but the people that do will, and let them.
Right.
And just let it be what it is,
Exactly. And it's such a freeing thing when once you sort of embrace that, right? Where you're like, it doesn't matter, it just as long as we're stoked, that's the only thing that matters,
So well said, dude.
And yeah. And it's really, sort of related to some other things that we've talked about, not on the podcast, but before, like just sort of like it's sort of changed, it's sort of, this band really is the reason that I started taking my health a little more seriously. Sure. We talked about this, some time ago where we both talked about like, oh, you're losing some weight and stuff. That's great. It's like, yeah, pandemic time, I had gained a bunch of weight and was drinking and eating poorly. And, we weren't playing, stuff like that. And I was thinking about coming out of the pandemic and having to play these Rad Owl songs again, especially the new songs that we've written are even more challenging in terms of like BPM and sure. Complexity and stuff. And I was like, man, I feel like I need to make a commitment to my health and
For sure.
overall well-being to be able to do this well and not make a fool of not get up on stage and make a fool of myself. Not that anyone cares other than me, but like just for myself and for my friends who I play music with, like I want to be the best at this that I can be.
Of course.
And that kind of led me to making some lifestyle changes and now I feel like I'm playing better than I ever have in my life, which is amazing because I'm 44 now, and you think, well, your physical peak is probably in your 20s or maybe your 30s or whatever, but like now that I'm actually like focused on that, I'm actually feeling like I'm kind of there now, and that's been a revelation, like, oh, you can you can really turn it back even further than I probably feel better than I did in my 20s, to be honest. It's crazy.
Likewise.
It's
Absolutely.
so there really is no limit to there's no ceiling on this thing. It's just, you got to put yourself in the right mindset and position yourself to be able to do it. And you can do it for as long as you want. So yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
it's inspiring on that level, just in terms of just other aspects of my life. It's made my whole life better, oddly enough. It's
Yep.
so yeah.
Well, right on. Well, Dave, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about all of that, because it was so great just to kind of get the perspective on the song. Again, Aladdin's Castle by Rad Owl. I'll post links up at the B-Side Breakdown website and on social media so everybody can get to it and know where to find it. Also, David, is there any other specific links you want me to include for any of your other projects? Like, is there a central hub that has all the various bands you are in?
Oh man, you'd think I should probably do something about that. I have a personal website, davidjarnstrom.com, but it's more for my writing stuff. I've been thinking about adding, just like kind of a aggregate, all my music projects as well. But for the moment, yeah, Rad Owl .bandcamp.com.
Sure.
Dead Histories on Bandcamp.
Okay.
I
Align's on Bandcamp.
played. Yeah, Align is on Bandcamp. Those are the three kind of most active things I'm doing now.
Okay.
I would say, yeah, start there and yeah.
Cool. Well, I'll make sure those links get up there. But again, thanks again. It's awesome catching up with you, and I'll make sure to look forward to the new Rad Owl record when you guys have it come out.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
You will. Thanks, Dave.
Three Crows Club presents B-Side Breakdown.
All right, and that wraps up another episode of the B-Side Breakdown. I got some more updates for Dave here in just a minute, but I just want to say a couple of quick housekeeping things first. One, I want to thank Adam Coulong and Carrie Bozel for helping me put together the jingle you hear at the beginning and the end of this episode. Also, please subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And transparently, we recorded this episode way earlier in the year, like last winter, and we shelved it because we knew that Rad Owl was potentially performing at Fest 21 this year in Gainesville, Florida, which is happening. So the last weekend of October, Rad Owl will be at Fest 21. Specifically, they're playing a venue called Vecinos on Sunday the 29th at 1 a.m. So really that means the show is Saturday the 28th. Go to the show, and Rad Owl will be playing at 1 a.m. Included in Fest, you see bands like Descendants, All, Quicksand, Sam I Am, etc. So if you're in the area, please go. Also, I have confirmed that the band has just finished tracking a new album and is currently in the mixing phase, so keep an eye out for that to drop in 2024. Other updates from Dave. November 8th through 13th of 2023, he will be playing drums with John Snodgrass on the Flogging Molly Salty Dog Cruise that's headed to Belize in Mexico. Check out David's Bandcamp pages for other show updates. It's also confirmed that David's other band, Dead History, is opening for Quicksand in Minneapolis at a new venue called Zora Darling. There used to be a restaurant over in East Hennepin called the Red Stag, and over the east side, not the one in Uptown, the one over in the East Hennepin side. So anybody who's from Minneapolis listening to this, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, Dead History is going to be opening up for Quicksand there, so make sure you go, November 17th. What else? Part of that new record that they got coming out, they slipped me an unfinished mix master version of a new song, so I want to play it for you here. It's called Tent City Dream. So I'm going to play that in just a second, but again, thank you so much for your continued support, and we'll see you at the next one. Here is Tent City Dream by Rad Owl. Be safe.
Candles burning, road